Gosh, well, it's been another extraordinary event. From children doing extraordinary things, from 7-year-olds right through to undergraduates. And it's made me very reflective this year, I think, in three key ways. Firstly, I think the quality of what's going on has changed dramatically. From even 5 years ago, children were doing things with technology and learning that just plain looked cool, and they didn't need to talk much about what they were doing because people looked at it and went, wow. Now what they're doing, they're reaching out for components and pieces here and pieces there. They're assembling this extraordinary recipe of learning from all the ingredients they're finding everywhere, some free, some on the internet. And what they're doing is so complex that they need and have clearly already needed to articulate it. And I think that reflection comes over in spades in terms of what they said, as I'm sure people were here, watching the videos. But I think that reflection tells us that the meta-level learning, children thinking about their own learning, has begun. This is properly a revolution in learning, a very gentle, rather personable, community-based revolution, but revolution indeed it is. The second thing I reflected on, and it's hard not to, in the middle of a world that's collapsing, in financial terms, the finance industry all around us here in London has gone to hell in a handcart, to be honest. It just occurred to me that we knew all the things that were wrong with the financial sector. House prices were too high, loans were being given to people who clearly shouldn't have loans and ... People watching this will know the full list of incompetence and greed. But it occurred to me that collapsed because somehow people didn't act on what they knew to be true. And here in learning and in schools, we know and we see the absolute evidence year on year that children love to learn with each other, that they love to do things that are more ambitious than the previous year, that criterion model of referencing is a prison. When you just say to them, we only want you to be as good as last year, they don't. They want to be way better than last year. And we know that they love to do this in their free time and at the beginning of the school day, the end of the school day, and at weekends and in the home. And we know that once they're started, they're almost unstoppable. And there's so much more that we know about 21st century learning. And my worry is, and it's a genuine concern, that if we don't respond to it, if we don't take notice of what is so obvious from talking to these extraordinary young learners, then education too will face the sort of magnitude of collapse that the finance sector has been devastated by. We can't go on forever knowing that doing it differently is better and not acting on that in terms of the design of our schools and the design of the curriculum. Now, all that would be a huge concern if it wasn't for this one glimmer of optimism. That's what keeps me smiling and happy at night. And the glimmer of optimism is that it probably doesn't matter. The revolution that's going on here is a bottom-up revolution. This is children and learners changing their institutions, the institutions changing policy, and the policy changing the world. So, yes, we might worry that the systems don't respond quickly enough, but I'll tell you what, even if the systems don't change at all, the learners have already got going. They're on the train, they've left the station, and they've departed. I think the next 5 years are going to be really, really interesting. We might, in all honesty, be seeing the death of education, but to my huge encouragement, I believe we've seen today and in 1,000 other places around the world the dawn of learning. And that's pretty heartening, actually. It's been a good day.